What's up guys, Sean here, and this is Sharpening Tips Part 2. I'm going to be showing you guys how to choose the angle you want to sharpen your knife at. So, choosing the right angle to sharpen your knife at is going to depend on a couple variables. First variable is going to be your blade thickness, and not just the thickness of the spine, but what really matters is your thickness behind the edge. So if you have some calipers, you might want to go ahead and measure your blade thickness behind the edge before you get started to give you an idea of just what you're working with. Because on a knife that is thicker behind the edge, so a behind the edge thickness of say 25 thousandths, you're going to want to consider shying away from angles lower than 20 degrees per side. 17 degrees per side would be fine if you're 20 thousandths behind the edge, but if you are say 30 thousandths behind the edge, you are going to end up with a bevel that looks like that. Going to be very tall bevel, which if you're okay with, then go for it, versus this 17 degrees per side bevel. Oh, come on, fucker. Not quite as large, definitely not obnoxious, and more importantly than just the looks, you're not going to have to worry about it chipping or anything, because it you're not laying it back too thin. It's still a great angle for EDC tasks. As long as you're not beating the shit out of your knife, 17 degrees is going to be pretty much good to go on just about anything. Now, other factors, it's going to come down to your intended use. What do you intend to use your knife for? Are you going to be prying with it? Are you going to be beating the shit out of it? Are you going to be throwing it, dropping it on the ground on concrete, and in the middle of a job you just drop it on the pavement and you're doing something, and then you go to pick it back up? Are you really hard on your knives? If you are, then you might want to do a steeper angle. I don't like steeper angles because it cuts down on your cutting performance. It really hinders your knife's ability to slice through material and glide through with little resistance. Once you start going steeper and steeper, you're gonna add stability to that edge. Okay, that edge is going to be very strong. It's gonna take impact better. It's gonna take running into very hard materials. It's gonna handle all that stuff better without chipping or rolling or breaking. However, something shaped like this is not gonna go through material very easily at all, compared to something like this is gonna zip right through, no problem. But depending on your blade steel, really your blade steel and your blade geometry, that super thin edge might, you might chip it. It's it's not going to be as strong. So that's just the way it is. I use my knives for cutting tasks, and I do not abuse them. So I put them through hell as far as cutting goes, but I don't use these for tasks that they're not intended for. So I don't use my knives as a screwdriver. I don't use my knives as a pry bar. I don't use my knives as a hammer, a can opener, a bottle opener, fucking my list could go on and on. I don't use my knives for that. I don't use my knives to cut wire. There's just certain things that you should use a specific tool for, a great saying that's been around forever, you want to choose the right tool for the job. Choose the right tool for the job and use the right tool for the job, because that tool is going to make the job much easier and it's going to make your life much easier, and you're not going to ruin the tool that wasn't right for that job. So that little rant's over. If you are like me and you take care of your knives and you use them for appropriate tasks, then you're not going to run into any issues with a 17-degree angle on pretty much any knife in any blade steel. I would say S30V and better. You shouldn't have any issues, with few exceptions. S110V, Maximet, those Rex 121. The harder you get a steel, oftentimes you also add brittleness. You might have insane edge retention. The knife will stay sharp forever because of the hardness, but it doesn't have any elasticity to it. It doesn't have any resistance to impact shock, or you know what I mean. So another thing to consider when you're choosing your sharpening angle is, what is the factory angle, and do you want to try to keep that factory aesthetic, or do you want to go for maximum cutting performance? Because if you want to stick with the factory angle, it's most factory edges are between 20 and 30 degrees per side. I like my knives, around 17 degrees per side. So in some cases, a manufacturer may sharpen their knives at, say, 30 degrees per side, and that might be due to the thickness of the blade, and so that the edge bevel is not really big. And it's also easier for them to just zip, put a little steep angle on it. It's not going to cut very good, but sometimes it can look good. It looks nice in factory. But instead of a stock 30-degree angle, you take it down to 20 or 17 degrees per side. You might have a big bevel, but I tell you what, this is a very stout, thick blade. It's a very, very strong blade. And this thing cuts like a hot knife through butter, even with all the thickness and toughness, and it's insane. And that makes this knife very, very enjoyable to carry and extremely enjoyable to cut with. You're not going to have much fun cutting with a knife that you have to muscle through material. That kind of takes away from, the enjoyment and the purpose of having a quality knife in the first place. So if I have a knife that I like and I'm going to keep it, I'm going to lay that bitch back and have some nice, good cutting performance. So guys, since this video is already starting to get a little bit long, I'm going to cut it now. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope it was helpful. As always, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.